Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So would love to just learn a little bit more about Mike, the kid from Pittsburgh, turning into Chef Michael Solomonov, the James Beard Award winner. Did you always know that this was something that you were going to be? Did you always want to be a chef?
No, I was a really, really difficult eater as a kid, ironically. And I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. I wanted to be a photographer. I went to college briefly with the intent of getting into photography, and then ended up only smoking pot and snowboarding and dropping out of college.
Nice.
And then I moved back to Israel. My family and I had moved. I was born in Israel, grew up in Pittsburgh, and then we moved back when I was like 15. So I dropped out of school and moved back to Israel and walked up and down the main street in the town that we lived in this little town called Kfar Saba, which is like north of Tel Aviv, and just asked people in very broken Hebrew and English if they needed somebody to like work for them. And I got a job in a bakery, and that's like where I started cooking.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And from that bakery, what were your biggest lessons learned?
Well, I wasn't used to working and working hard or working legitimately. And so I learned a lot about, I mean, probably the most important lessons of my life happened there. I couldn't talk my way into anything because nobody there cared where I really came from. They were happy at that time to have not only an immigrant worker, but also an immigrant American worker. It was like a twofer for them. It was like the status symbol that they had this this guy, and it was right around the Clinton like Monica Lewinsky scandal thing. So they would be like, "Yeah, Bill Clinton, huh?" You know, and I was like, I don't know him personally, and I don't speak any Hebrew. Can you just like tell me what to do? So it was like, you know, I learned a lot about myself and about what it was like to really have to work hard, you know. And everybody there was from somewhere else, and you know, culturally it was just really exciting, and it was like at the lowest level. Literally, I was taking out like garbage bags full of trash, scrubbing sheet trays for like 10 hours at a time, chasing rats around with like a pizza cutter, and occasionally would get to like do cool stuff, you know. And then, and I learned Hebrew, and I learned a little bit of Arabic, and I learned a bit of Russian, and my family's from Bulgaria before Israel, or like half of my family is, and I learned like what the sort of social cues of like Bulgarian Jewish immigrants as it related to everybody else, because there were Venezuelan immigrants, there was like Muslim Arabs, there were Christian Arabs, and it was just like awesome. And I remember the owner of the bakery took me to his house, and I thought he was like making me lunch or whatever, and he like made me clean up his garden. And then afterwards, we drank coffee, and he was asking me if I wanted to close the bakery, if that would be like my new task that I would enjoy. The word for bakery in Hebrew is mafia, which I thought was mafia. So he was having a conversation with me for like 45 minutes. And I was like, am I being in the mob? Like, is that what's happening right now?
Is that my next
Because I didn't know that mafia meant bakery. So I thought I'd left there with like
new
status,
job, yeah.
you know, but really I only, you know, I got a 20 agarot raise, which is like 7 cents. So I was making like the equivalent of like $3 an hour there.
Awesome.
And it was amazing. I loved it. I fell in love with the camaraderie and the legitimate work. And I'd come from this sort of upper middle class background in the States, and my values were skewed, you know. So it was really cool to do that and to learn something. And at the bakery, we made a bunch of cool things. Challah, everybody eats challah. First of all, nobody in Israel gives a shit about carbohydrates at all. So they don't know what Atkins is. It doesn't, anytime you go over to someone's house over there and they're like, come over for coffee, it is like platters of cakes, right? And everybody, regardless of how religious you are, everybody gets challah, basically, on Fridays. So I was used to this alternative subculture of being a recluse pothead in the States. But in Israel, working in a bakery means that you're like basically the center of town on Friday. So we'd go into like Thursday or Friday morning at like 2 a.m. and make challahs for like 14 hours. And every single person in the town would come and participate. So you were like part of something, right? And then my grandmother, who was probably like, I know this is super cliched, but like the reason I probably love food or love the heritage of the food that I cook, would make borekas, which are this Balkan pastry that come all the way from medieval Spain through the Ottoman Empire to Israel. And I got to make thousands of them a day. And it was like the one thing that I loved eating as a kid. And it was the way that I could relate to my grandmother. So to be part of something on this, you know, sort of hyper-social but also hyper-spiritual level was something I had never really experienced.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Real question. Boreka is filled with spinach, with cheese, with potato. What's your favorite filling?
Feta cheese with like a shitload of sesame on top. Best.
Cool. Awesome.
But all of them are really, really good, and they tell the story of like real Israeli cuisine.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to hear the real story?
Let's hear it.
Okay,
You're
good. And then I'm done after this, right? No. So my grandmother, her maiden name before Solomonov was Toledo, which is from the town in Spain. At post-Inquisition, they pieced out of Spain, and they brought with them this laminated dough. And everyone thinks that the French puff pastry actually comes from the Sephardic Jews in medieval Spain. So they brought with them this dough to like the Balkans, where they settled, and the Turks came in, the Ottomans came in and took over, like they did a lot of the world at that time, and they started stuffing this laminated pastry with like what we think is Bulgarian feta. And then the Bulgarians overthrew the Ottomans using Russian families to help arm them, which is why my last name is Solomonov, actually. Everyone thinks I'm Russian. I don't speak any Russian. And in fact, the last name was Bahar, but to honor the Russian families that helped arm these Bulgarians in Varna, they all took Russian last names. And then in 1948, they all moved to Israel, bringing with them this savory pastry, which is now on every single street corner in Israel.
Amazing.
Which is like awesome, right?
Yeah, great story. So given that you had a stint in Israel, came back to the States, how do you think that kind of back and forth has influenced your food today?
I actually think going back, so I didn't move to Israel to become a chef. I just ended up working there, and then I worked at a little cafe after the bakery, and I was like, wow, creating things with my hands is fun. I like the intensity. I like the sort of people pleasing. I'm going to become a chef. And it wasn't my intention to cook Israeli food. I moved back to the States and went to culinary school and then worked in a bunch of European restaurants or whatever. And I thought that's what, at that time in the 90s, or the late 90s, like early 2000s, everybody would go to school or work and then go to Europe. And it was either like San Sebastian, Spain, or France. That's kind of like where everybody was going.
Yeah.
And that's just what I thought I would do. And then I ended up not. I ended up going back to visit my family in Israel. One of many things happened, and I just sort of was, I don't know, it was like sitting down at a restaurant and having like 20 different little dishes come out that represent 20 different countries, and the sort of music of it all, and the choreography, and the live fuel, and everything over charcoal, and spices that you've never heard of that represent the spice trade, the Silk Road, 2,000 years of post-Babylon diaspora, Palestinian cooking from the West Bank, from the Levant, from Gaza, the Shabbat dinners that include 100 different cultures all like mushed together. It was like, why would I cook? Why do I need to go to France?
Yeah.
Why do I need to go to Spain? At that time, ironically, tapas was like a big thing in Philly. And I was like, well, people understand small plates because of tapas. which is funny because like meze predates tapas by like 2,000 years, but whatever. So it just, and I think that while that was happening, like people in Israel, instead of cooks in Israel going to Europe or going to Asia or the States and then coming back to Israel to open up French restaurants or whatever, they were like, well, you know, my going to have Shabbat dinner at my grandparents means, you know, Polish, Moroccan, Yemenite, and like Romanian.
Right.
It's all right here. I don't need to go anywhere else for it. So we decided to open an Israeli restaurant, and we like didn't know what that meant, because everyone is like, what do you think? When somebody says Israeli restaurant, they're like falafel, right? Or shawarma or hummus, which we would have made a lot more money had we just opened up those places. But so we had to like convince people and, you know, answer the question. Everyone was like, isn't it political to open an Israeli restaurant? And I'm like, I don't know. Israeli, I think that's kind of a big, broad question, you know?
Right.
So we decided to open what people call a modern Israeli restaurant, even though we cook everything over like charcoal and make bread in a wood-burning oven. The cooking methods are quite primitive, but the idea of this global Israeli food, you know, going to different places and being sort of reinterpreted is what I think makes it modern.
Interesting. Love that. So not only did you have an uber successful Israeli restaurant, you also have a donut empire, you have a few cookbooks. Mm-hmm. How do you decide what ideas are worth sticking to or really worth pursuing? I'm sure you get in your head a lot of different concepts, ideas. You know, what makes something worth pursuing to you?
I mean, I think that's a really difficult question to answer because I think that as much as one can strategize, the secret to any of this success is having like a brilliant business partner or partners, which I've been lucky to have. I think that you have to make a lot of really bad decisions, you know? So you don't wake up in the morning and you're like, we're gonna have a donut empire. What really happened is like Zahav almost closed its first year. We opened another restaurant. We opened a modern Israeli restaurant in 2008, right after Wachovia AIG went under. I was like in drug rehab, and the Phillies were winning the World Series, which is awesome if you have a restaurant or bar with a TV in it, not if you have an Israeli restaurant. And you know, like the elections were happening, nobody wanted to go out and eat, and the economy was like falling apart, you know? And when you're doing like chopped Israeli salad in February in Eastern Pennsylvania, it's a little bit difficult to like understand for the customer, I guess, to understand what was happening. So we almost went under. It was an awful year for many reasons. And then we decided to open a barbecue restaurant thinking that it would be low labor, low cost, low tech. Right. All of those things are wrong. We opened, brisket was $1.90 a pound. When we sold the restaurant, brisket was at $5 a pound. Smoking meat is very difficult. We were doing it like Texas style, which is closer to like the Jewish brisket that we grew up with. Most people don't like that. I don't know. Most people actually go anywhere in the South, have barbecue once, and think that that is what barbecue is. So we like didn't have pulled pork for the first 2 years, even though everyone was like,
Where's the pulled
pork?
The
pulled pork? Yeah. I love pulled pork. And we were like, no. They don't know. The reality is you need to like listen to what your customers want. You know, and it doesn't matter what the tradition is because tradition in Texas is different, you know, just like it is when you make pasta in Piedmont, you know, depending on what side of the street you live on. And the other thing is we weren't like emotionally invested into what it was. It didn't mean the same as Zahav, right? Mm-hmm. So we started a donut empire because we had two restaurants that were like gonna go under that were huge. My partner, Steve, and I met 3 other people. We all threw in a very small amount of money, whatever we were like kind of willing to lose at that time, because we wanted to do a new project and we were bored, and the big box restaurants in Philly were gonna like kill us. So we like found a 600 square foot restaurant with 3 other people. 2 of them brought the first wave of like fancy coffee to Philly. The other person was a social media whiz. Steve and I knew food, and we opened Federal Donuts with like $30,000. Awesome. And then on day 1 and day 2, we ran out of donuts in an hour, and we had people standing in line for chicken, you know, at 11 a.m. when we started at noon, and we were like, oh, we might actually be onto something. So it was kind of like we had nothing else left to lose, and we ended up with a donut empire a few years later.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
what made you decide to do donuts and fried chicken?
I don't know.
Just
Like the
just
two, yeah,
sounded
donut,
good?
fried chicken, coffee are the three major food groups in Philadelphia. So, no, we were the guys that we had partnered with wanted to do donuts because nobody was really doing donuts, and I think at the time, I was just eating a shitload of Korean fried chicken, and we were like,
Nice.
we'll have one piece of equipment, which will be a fryer, and we could do donuts and fried chicken, which it turns out the donuts don't taste very good after you fried like a bunch of chicken in them, but so we bought another piece of equipment.
Got it. Got it. So how is writing a cookbook? What does that process look like? How do you, decide this is what I want to do? And
Well, it is rough. Again, this is where it's very important to have an intelligent business partner that can write a cookbook. But I think for like the Zahav cookbook, it's something that we wanted to do for years, and it took us about 5 years to figure out what our role was in being this conduit from Israel to the U.S. or to the Western market or whatever, or figure out to be comfortable with the role that we had in Israeli cuisine. So it took a long time, and there were a lot of moments where we could have done it differently or maybe a little bit easier, which we didn't do, thank God. And my business partner, Steve, who had never written anything professionally ever, after toying with the idea of ghostwriters, was like, I'm gonna try to write a head note, which he did. And then he was like, I'm gonna write a chapter. And then, 2 years later, he won 2 James Beard Awards for writing this book, which was awesome, including Book of the Year. So Zahav was a very personal book, and it was a book that the restaurant deserved, the movement that we were part of deserved, and it was something that was it's a personal book. I mean, It's not just an Israeli cookbook written by an Israeli cookbook author. I mean, it's sort of like our heart and soul, and it's like my family and this sort of look into Israel with your toe in Israel and in the States. The Federal Donuts book was just kind of fun, and we wanted to do it, and it's like a little bit silly, and there's like a workout routine in it. I work out at a boxing.
I did see it.
I work out at a boxing gym, and our my trainer is like part of the cookbook, so it's great.
Yeah.
You do like exercises with fried chicken, squats and stuff, and they work. And then we're working on our third book right now,
Awesome.
which is the sort of next. It's like the prequel to Zahav,
Very cool.
which required us to be in Israel, shooting and eating for like 10 days. We had
Wow.
82 meals in like 8 days.
Wow.
So we needed to do a lot of like chicken
I was gonna
exercise after
say.
that, and that is good. I mean, I'm hoping that we don't have to do any more cookbooks like this.
Three and
But it's
done.
great. I mean, it's amazing to publish something and to. We always thought that the digital cookbook would be the thing. There is something about sitting in your bathrobe, reading a cookbook at your coffee table that is amazing, and there is something about your kids sort of seeing it and recognizing it and having coffee stains or hummus stains or whatever variety of food stains that you have on the cookbook that is special and personal.
Absolutely, definitely. I know I
Yeah.
can say I do like reading my hardcover.
What kind of food products do you have stuck on your book?
Tea
Tea?
on the inside, but that's about it.
That's
I
a
don't know.
really
Any other
safe
good
answer.
food products
Yeah.
stuck on your cookbooks in the audience? Good idea? No?
Lemon garlic
Okay.
paste is a good one.
We should do stain removers for cookbooks.
I don't
Next
know.
product.
Or we should do bookmarks or a piece of steak. That you
Yeah.
just,
Yes, exactly. So you're a busy guy. You have
Yeah.
multiple restaurants, multiple cookbooks, traveling.
Yes.
How do you keep it all in balance?
I am not the person to talk to you about balance.
Okay.
I don't think that there's ever an ideal. I don't think that there's ever perfect. I think that you always have to prioritize, and I think that could be hour to hour, day to day.
Yeah.
I don't think looking too far ahead. We write these I have these goals for the next year, and then after day 2, I'm like, this is the stupidest freaking thing ever, and it doesn't really work like that. And I think that there's always short-term and long-term happiness, and that these long-term goals that we have are they're important to have, but they are never accurate. and I think they always should be changing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not very good about balance.
That's okay.
To answer your
We're
question.
always striving here at Google to have better balance.
I mean, there's no such thing as perfect, yet we're always trying to achieve it, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that going into it and being cognitive of the whole thing or cognizant of the whole thing and being cognitive about the way that you try to attain it is like the most important thing, you know?
Totally. Very cool. Well, we'll start opening up the floor to questions, but before we do, I have a little quick fire for you.
Oh.
But you kind of already answered my first one. What is your 2018 New Year's resolution? I know you said you don't really have one, but like, if you had to pick one.
I want to drink more water. I
Cool.
want to sleep closer to 7 hours a night. I want to read more, meditate more. I want to land a backflip on a snowboard.
Cool. Very cool. I like
One
all
of those
great.
things might not happen.
I was going to say, very ambitious.
Yeah, I want to get my kids to eat more decent food. And we've got a couple we have a project, a couple very exciting projects. One of them is like super personal, and I'm like, really want that to open well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how do you pick where you want to expand to? I know you have restaurants in Philly, you have restaurants in Miami, you have Dizengoff here in New York. What kind of process do you go through when you're thinking about where you want to expand?
Well, I mean, I think it's, we have these sort of grand plans, but I think that a lot of what we depend on is like our human resource and the way that our team grows.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not, in hospitality, you need to accept that you are a slave to your employees and your team and to your customers.
Yep.
And if you don't find joy in that, it's not a good business to get into. And basically, we just have to listen to our customers and our guests and our team and kind of figure out, the convergence of those two relationships determines kind of where we go next.
Yeah, no, I like that. So what's your biggest cooking or kitchen hack or trick?
Trick. I'm not, I have a lot of tricks.
Okay, cool. What's
That's a
your
very
favorite?
mysterious answer. I don't know, what would be, be more
Like,
specific.
is there a way to cut an onion that no one knows that you figured out, or, turning on a certain temperature for a certain sauce? Like, any hacks or tricks that you could share with the broader non-professional chefs?
Well, we refer to this on our book, but like the secret of our hummus is very fluffy tahina. We blend whole bulbs of garlic with lemon juice and let it sit for like 10 minutes so it mellows the garlic, and then pass and strain the whole thing. So it's kind of a step. You don't have to peel garlic, and the bulb and the skin are actually pretty delicious. We add that to raw tahina and then whip it with ice water, and you end up with this like amazing sauce. The other trick is that when you puree whole bulbs of garlic and lemon juice for about 10 seconds, the way that all the product suspends, it looks like a milkshake. And if you're working next to somebody that you dislike, you're like, try this milkshake I made, and then they drink it.
Great hack.
Yeah.
Perfect trick.
So you decide which trick you'd like.
Okay, so if you had to pick one, donuts or hummus?
Cut. I don't know. They're both fantastic.
Okay. The one food you can't live without.
I love like raw carrots.
Nice.
But I think that legumes
Okay.
are pretty delicious.
Cool.
And healthy. Peanut butter, have to have that. Oh my God, I have to have peanut butter. Cucumbers are really good. But when I like cook, I need a shitload of parsley and lemon juice on everything.
Cool. What's your favorite restaurant in New York?
It's kind of a toss-up. I like 11 Madison Park is obviously amazing. Shuko, which is a great sushi restaurant, is awesome. A restaurant in Williamsburg called Trafe, which is great. One of my good friends runs it. Where else? Mamafuku-san bar is like still amazing. L&B Pizza in Brooklyn.
Cool.
Really good tomato pie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard. This is terrible, but I am up in New York like once a week or whatever, and there's like a pizza place in Penn Station that I eat out at the most.
All right, pizza in Penn Station.
You can wash it down with a lukewarm cup of coffee from the kiosk next door.
You're just missing the hot dog.
There's something in Philly, I can't remember what it's called, and I've never had it. And you take a cheesesteak from Jim's, which is on South Street, and put it inside of a slice of pizza from Lorenzo's, and you like roll it up and eat it. You were saying hot dog, but I guess you could wrap a hot dog with a slice of pizza and eat it.
The New York version.
You got to make sure the coffee is hot so you can like shoot it down your throat, you know?
All right, food competition. So what's your favorite food destination besides Israel?
I think that we live in this great, this is a frustrating, stupid ass answer that I'm going to give you, but I think that everywhere right now is like a foodie town. And I think that we are on the cusp of people really getting a chance to express themselves and where they're from. And although there's like tons of xenophobia and alienation happening all over the world, people now have this grassroots way of like telling their story. And I think that everywhere you go has got these immigrant populations. Everywhere you go in the world have got people that have made this living generation after generation from preparing food and hospitality. So I like going anywhere. I like going anywhere. I like going holes in the walls in any city.
Cool.
I think it's amazing. We were just talking about South Florida, and when I learned how to cook, I like went to culinary school in West Palm Beach, and there were like 3 kinds of restaurants there. Right?
Yeah.
And now you can go anywhere and figure out where people are from. You can go to any random road in Florida and just take it and find a little place that has arepas or like the best Cuban coffee or great Thai food. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think there's a place in the country that doesn't have a great food scene. I don't often eat at like fancy restaurants. Mostly because I can't sit for more than 45 minutes without having like an anxiety attack. But, you know, I think that, I don't know, I think anywhere is pretty great.
Yeah.
Anywhere Queens, I just like get on a train and go out and God, what is the stop that has got the great Indo-Paki? Do you guys know or what? Yes, Jackson Heights, man. And then there's like amazing dumplings. I mean, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So last question, proudest moment of your career?
That is a good one. Do you want to actually hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. So we've won a bunch of great awards. I won the James Beard Award for Best Chef Mid-Atlantic on Israeli Independence Day in 2011, and then Outstanding Chef again on Independence Day. And it was like amazing, amazing. But I received I'm doing this right now. I'm going to read something, okay?
Do it.
I got to find it on my phone. You guys ready?
Yeah.
So, here it is. Dear Michael, my name is Reem, and I'm the author of the book you are holding in your hands. And the book was The Palestinian Table. I still remember eating at Zahav back in 2008 when I was a student at Wharton. There was a dish of frika topped with chicken at the time, and I felt so satisfied and so nostalgic when I tasted it. And then in parentheses, she writes, maybe also a little jealous that the best Arabic food I had tasted since arriving in Philly was at an Israeli restaurant. And then she did the semicolon smile thing, which is weird when somebody writes it out, but I liked it. Because Palestinian and Israeli, we're all insecure line cooks at the end of the day, and I was like, yeah, we won. So it's been almost a decade since, and I just moved back to Philly with my family from London this past year. It's amazing to see what you've done since I was here last. To be honest, I wanted to reach out for a while, but I hesitated. Yet when I watched In Search of Israeli Cuisine, which is a documentary I was in, this past week, I realized what a genuine, fun, curious person you are. And it reaffirmed my desire to reach out to you and get to know you. I believe food can help start a conversation where nothing else has been able to. and I hope my book is a testament to that fact. As it happens, the photographer who shot my book is Israeli, Dan Perez, and the whole process of working together reaffirmed to me how the human spirit can rise above our muddled politics. So, I just wanted to share my book with you and say thank you for the inspiration you've been. You certainly don't need my cookbook, but I do hope you enjoy looking through it and maybe find a small piece of our shared home inside it. Until we meet in person, I leave you with my warmest wishes, Reem. Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
That was the best part of my career.
Wow.
Yep.
Applause for that. Amazing. And now you have it on your phone and you can always find it.
Or I can struggle to find it, but it's there. Yeah, I think that that is the best. I think that that is by far the most important thing, and we have goals in 2018, which may or may not be harder than landing a backflip on a snowboard, but we'll see.
Who knows, TBD. Yep. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Well, we'll open up the room for questions from the audience. Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. I've eaten at Dizengoff next door, and it's fantastic. And what, not only is the hummus really good, but it's the pita bread is also the best.
Thank you very much.
The best that I've had. I haven't been to Israel.
Your check is in the mail, my friend. Thank you very much. So you took off your Dizengoff shirt before coming over here, right?
That's right. I don't know. I just snuck in here.
Yeah.
I like making hummus at home, but I don't think it's hard for me to make a pita that's kind of that great. Do you have any tips?
I do. We actually, in the book, we have, I'm not just saying this so you buy a book. Who wants a book? No,
you get a book.
Here's what you do. Just steal hers, take a picture of the recipe, and go. We have an easy way to make it using a home oven and using the broiler, basically, and a cookie tray upside down. The good pita is a few things. It is not overworking the dough, and it is super hot contact with an oven to get good oven spring to make the pocket.
Yeah, it's kind of sounds like basically pizza, but no toppings in a way, right? I think about the same thing when baking.
Yeah,
pizza.
a less marketable pizza, but pizza you've got a little bit more because you need a little bit of crust, whereas the perfect pita, despite a lot of the store-bought pita that we have here in the States, should be really pliable, so you can scoop and wipe. And also needs to hold up, so you can make a sandwich with it, drive a car, talk on the phone, and smoke a cigarette at the same time. which is the test of a perfect pita.
Yeah, but I will test
for that. In the book, we have a great recipe.
With trends like Yelp, Instagram, and podcasts, what are some of the pros and cons that you see in these as a restaurant owner?
I think that every industry is always changing. I think the restaurant industry is definitely no exception, and I think that people hate on Yelp, for example, and everyone, it's oh, Yelpers. But I mean, if I go to a table at Zahav and I'm like, hey, covered in flour, bringing the pita over, and I'm like, what do you think? You're going to be like, oh my God, it's great. Thank you so much. And then you're going to leave and you're going to be like, that place sucks, And the good thing about Yelp is even though sometimes I lose sleep over how brutally honest it can be, it's one of the only ways to get real feedback. So a lot of people are hate on Yelp. The truth is everybody in my company reads our Yelp reviews every single day. And we respond to every single one of them. And we take them all very seriously. So it's annoying because I want people to like everything that I do. The reality is we're in the most subjective industry and we're trying to please I don't know, thousands of people a week that all have different taste buds, and there's no real way to do that. But the other things, I mean, it's just a function of what it is that we do, right? I mean, the industry and environment that you in is only about progressive ingenuity, and I think restaurants are exactly the same, and trends are happening now because people are interested in food, and media and communications are just out there, and having an Instagram account, with thousands of followers coming to the restaurant and taking a picture and posting it is sometimes just as important as a review from a critic, which is crazy a little bit, but it's just the way it goes. So I think that it's kind of exciting. I can't wait to see what's next in the way that, I don't know, there's a lot of like things happening at the same time right now. We've got environment, labor, all these like sort of topics and issues, and the way that, you know, technology and ingenuity, I think, are going to help put things in the right direction. And to be part of it in one way or another is like pretty exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I watched the documentary on Netflix, and my husband and I were like grinning from ear to ear because it was so great. You guys have to watch it.
Thank you.
Question though, we noticed that falafel wasn't really mentioned, and it's such an iconic food of Israel and that region of the Middle East. So
Yeah.
curious if there was a specific reason it was omitted, or you guys just had so many other good subjects. It could
Yeah,
be
I mean,
included.
come to think of it, I guess you're right. We ate so much falafel. I just don't know. I don't actually know. I mean, the filmmaker Roger Sherman would probably answer that better, but I don't think there was a reason. I don't think we were like, well, we can't do falafel because that's, you know, too much or whatever.
Too
But
controversial.
yeah, I think that we, you know, what you saw on the film was like 20% of what we shot. And we were there for 3.5 weeks eating like
Wow.
7 times a day. I mean, it was like crazy. So I don't know why we didn't like, there wasn't like a falafel documentary. There should be.
Is there
only
enough
falafel.
footage for a part 2?
There could be a footage for part 10. I mean, it could go on forever.
Yeah.
What's funny is that we shot that 5 years ago. I go to Israel at least once a year. I obviously go to visit family, and but it's like my job. You know, I like eat all the time, and most of the places that we went to, I had not even like heard of. And a lot of places that I go back to, I don't even, you know, it's the country is the size of New Jersey, and it's just like, you could not skip a meal or a cuisine for weeks. I mean, it's just so gastronomically rich. But I think that was kind of the point that we were making. But I don't know about the falafel thing. We should definitely make a complaint on Yelp to the filmmaker.
It was so great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You should come, if you're a falafel fan, you should come to Philly. We have a good falafel shop there.
Yeah, we've actually been talking about taking a little day trip.
Do it. Get the Google bus or airplane or helicopters and come down. Yeah, helicopter.
First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My mom is Israeli, actually, and I definitely connected with the kind of eclectic food that I grew up eating, like from hummus, obviously, to like schnitzel, to borscht, to blintzes, to you name it, by
Yeah.
way of Poland, I should say. So obviously, Dizengoff is a kind of a different kind of hospitality than Zahav. It's more of a takeout spot for
Yeah.
me. I'm curious what you think, just in terms of the restaurant industry, about delivery. Do you think delivery is like the next great thing? Do you think it's a necessary evil? Do you think it's kind of the downfall of restaurants?
And we were sort of touching on this before, I definitely think it's the future. I think that I mean, especially in metropolitan areas, the way that we sort of work, I guess. I mean, I think that delivery makes the most amount of sense, and I think figuring out the way to do that is sort of the next big thing. And for us, and this goes back to the reason that we cook Israeli food. It's like my food memories, the reasons that I cook are not because of like a 7-course or 12-course tasting menu at a Michelin restaurant. It's about having like the perfect pita and hummus that like make me want to like explode with joy. And I think that you have that opportunity with takeout, with fast casual. It definitely is. And I think actually a lot of places are doing it quite well. I think there still is a lot of room for that. The Dizengoff partnership here with you all could work, but I think that is definitely the next thing.
I guess to maybe more specifically around the actual kind of texture, flavor, heat, temperature, all those things around the perfect pita, for example, how that travels and some of the challenges that go with that.
I know. I mean, we're working on that too, and I think that the perfect pita for us goes in styrofoam sealed. So we're waiting for somebody, and maybe in your free time, guys, you can start working on this. There are people using fungus, actually, sort of like plastic-esque fungus that sort of simulates airtight plastic. So we need that, because that is what the perfect pita is. It is soft and it is fluffy, and it doesn't even have to be warm, but sealing it is good. And we do that now. When we dropped off pita here, we brought over these giant styrofoam containers that we reuse. But like, as much as I think it would make a great Instagram video, we can't drop off one pita with like a giant styrofoam container and like open it up, you know? What we should do is put a human being inside of it. So when you open it up, they jump out and they're like, here's your pita. And they run away. So that's what we're going to work on next. I do think it's kind of the next big thing. But I think that goes for every type of food. I mean, there's so many different kinds of iconic street food that people are used to eating in the street. They don't, and standing up, you know, and delivery of it kind of messes it up. So, yeah. Hey.
Hello. You briefly mentioned your business partner. I think his name was Steve.
Yes.
And how important it was to have a good one. Makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how you guys came to work together, where you experienced the most friction with one another, and how you make decisions when you inevitably disagree?
Those are great questions, and those are things that we, after being in business for 10 years, becoming best friends, after being business partners, always have to re-examine. And sometimes they can be super uncomfortable, and we're like opposite people, which I think makes a better product, you know, like for our guests and for our team. He was an investment banker that like hated it from day one, and he was here working like for Blackstone in the late 90s and decided to go to culinary school at night and then opened a restaurant in Philadelphia. And then after a short period of time, got really burned out. And his wife and I grew up together in Pittsburgh. So we met and hung out and then started opening restaurants together. And I think that the way that we contradict one another is, it forces a conversation. And I think that we ultimately take ourselves out of the equation, because you have to change the narrative if it's like the two of you that have everything that you've ever worked on, or you know, we invest everything together all the time. So we have to make decisions that are like super subjective, but also very objective, because we're considering so much. And I think the back and forth friction is actually a good thing. We have to, you know, we have to either, we have to adjust, basically, and we have to remember that we're not the only people making decisions all the time. And sometimes they can be like dragged out, and sometimes they can be funny and ironic, and then sometimes they can breed probably a very low level of resentment until we sort of talk it out. But I think that we're always in either this, we're always consciously disagreeing on things, and I feel like that ends up, you know, we sort of always have our eye on the prize. I don't like it. I don't like confrontation. And I am like really animated. And when I get pissed off, I yell and throw things. And he is like very quiet and will like stare at you for like an hour and a half until he gets like what he wants. You know? And he's also super intelligent. And I am what I like to call emotionally intelligent. And I think that I think that we're like sort of forced to like come up with decisions together because of that. And when you have everything collateralized for like bank loans, you can't just walk away. And I think that also, what's been really funny is because of the nature of our industry, people see me as like the guy that does everything, right? Because people like chefs, because we're on TV, because we have tattoos, and because we like drop F-bombs. And people love that, and they think we're creative. The reality is, everything that I've ever done has been with Steve. Like a lot of our restaurants, because I like tend to work at Zahav a lot. We have 14 restaurants. I don't make decisions for all of them. He's got a finance background. Obviously, when we're writing business plans, I'm not the guy that's like, you know, fucking whatever. Bank loan officers don't love that sort of discussion. So a lot of what we've had to do is like check our egos, and every time an article gets published that's like Michael Solomonov's restaurant empire, I get offended by it, and I need to sit and be like, Steve, I'm so sorry that has happened, because it's like bullshit. And because we have 250 people that work for us. Steve and I come up with everything. Steve has written 3 books. One of them won 2 Beard Awards, including Book of the Year. And people still look at my name as the thing. So a lot of it has to be that emotional sort of checking. And in the office, people go to Steve and want him to make decisions. And I'm like, hey, dude, I'm like a 50% owner of all these things. And although I get like lippy and loud and don't have like business experience, we've built this together. So on one hand, my ego gets hurt. On the other hand, his gets hurt. And we have to sit and like do kumbaya often. Or trust falls with one another, which are not effective. You need more than 2 people. But I think it's really, I think it's awesome. And I think that like he's, for all intents and purposes, like my brother. And we've been through hell. We've been to hell and back and through hell and back together. And I like love the idea of what, we've been partners together for like a decade and built so much together. And I think a lot of that has to do with our resilience as a team. So it's good, but it's hard to work with other people. It is not easy. Most relationships fall apart. Most egos fall apart. And the moment you start believing everything positive written about you and like take it to heart is when things do fall apart. So don't get into the restaurant business is what I'm saying. Thanks for your questions, though. They were really, I hope I answered them.
Yeah.
Hey.
Great.
Hi, I have a lighthearted question. You mentioned one of your New Year's resolutions was to have your kids eat better.
Yeah.
As a new mom of a young daughter, I'm just curious, like real talk, I'm guessing your kids don't eat dino chicken nuggets on like a random Tuesday. Maybe they do. But what is the before? Like what are they eating now? What do you hope they would eat later? I'm just curious. Like what's the before and after in your world? I'm guessing it's different.
It always
mine.
changes. And I think the one constant is that there is no absolute, and that like whenever you think you're onto some like thing with your kid, it always changes. So the things that they've always enjoyed though have been Asian noodle soup, which I'm lucky because we can do pho, we can do ramen, that kind of thing. Greens and like herbs and stuff are a little bit tricky, but I think that bribing them with candy is what you should do. And I'm also like not above, like, I get like a little, I like fly off the handle and will sometimes like border on being like a crazy parent, and like a little like pat on the back, grab on the neck, and I'm like, you're gonna eat this. But I think it's always a victory. Like my oldest son will not eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but will eat head on, shell on shrimp, tail first. And I'm like, dude, you're eating Szechuan shrimp that are so spicy. No adult will eat that, but like, why won't you eat like Wonder Bread? And I think what you have to do is like celebrate the shrimp and then find shrimp all over the city to go eat, and then you do it. But bribing with candy is definitely the only way to actually make it work. And M&Ms have these like caramel ones right now that the kids love, and that will get them, they'll eat anything.
Do you cook at home a lot for them?
And that is the other thing. I think having them participate is a huge thing, and being part of it, and even like baby fingers like picking cilantro leaves that they will never eat. Still exciting, and they're still part of that too. But I found like smoothies, you can do a lot. If you start with a banana and strawberry, you can like, or like I have newt, or like whatever. You can like put anything in there. As long as it's red and smells like a banana, you could put anything in there. Like gravel if you wanted. It would make a difference. Good to know. Any other questions?
Good to know.
Oh, here we go.
Hi, Mike. So you've done a lot of research for your food, right? You've been to Israel a lot. Do you feel you have a lot more digging to do? Like find old recipes, going through all the genealogy, and as much as the food and recipes have traveled. Where are you in your satisfaction level on that?
All right, that is a great question, and I am not satisfied. We have a long way to go, and I think that, God, I remember this like middle school like social studies teacher. I think it was like the first history class I ever took, and they were like, bullet point was like, why is it important to study history? And it was like, so you can like understand or at least shape the future, which we've all come to terms with bullshit. But the idea of being able to do it and figuring out your role in this sort of continuity of it is so important. So I think that to me, it's part of my heritage, and I'm like fascinated by the country and what opportunities the foodways and the cultural foodways, sort of how they have been presented and how they can play out, I think is like very stimulating. I never get bored of it. I spent most of my life here. The moment I get off the airplane and I like smell the orange blossoms and hear the country and the people and taste the food and smell the spices and discover something new, which happens every single trip. I went 5 times last year. There were 30 points in those 5 trips where I was like, I can't believe I've like never seen this before. I am like so excited about this thing. That never ends. And as much as I sometimes feel so not Israeli there, I like feel like a sense of peace in the balagan and the craziness that is Israel that I will never get tired of. I was born there, which means that even if I travel in the Middle East on my American passport, it still says I was born in Israel, which doesn't get you very far in the Middle East. But I'm really hoping, and this is super cliched, but I'm hoping that through food we can start to open up the borders a little bit, like figuratively and literally. It would be really amazing. I would love to be able to go to, which I can do, go to Spain and like make that sort of trek, you know, but I would also like to be able to go to Aleppo, what is left of it, and see it, or go to Damascus, or to go to Beirut, or travel through the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. I mean, those countries are super important, and the fact that I don't have access to them is infuriating, quite honestly. So hopefully, through food, we can do it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.